Snyder. The woman in my life. The woman in my life, Snyder.
Fellow Toastmasters, honored judges, and guests. Do you know what today is? I know some of you know. I know Kim knows. I know Bridget knows. I don't understand how you couldn't all know. There's signs as you come in the door. And it's even on the internet. Today's my birthday. And that's always a good thing, no matter how old I get. But one of the things I've learned, and I learned from Larry that this was absence of mass before. One of the things I've learned when I became a mother is that a birthday is really much more important to a mother than it is to the person that got born, because I don't remember that day. But I can tell you everything about my daughter's birthday. And we learn a lot as we get older. And many of these things we learn from our parents. And I want to talk to you about some of the things I've learned from the women in my life, especially my mother. The first thing I learned, I mentioned that today is my birthday. The first thing I learned is that in my family, we're willing to do just about anything to become a mother. Now, my mother lost her first child. And she not only lost her first child immediately at birth, but she was so ill that she was in the hospital for 2 weeks. She had seizures, and they didn't know whether she was going to live. And when she asked the doctor how long she needed to wait to have another child, like most of us wouldn't say, this isn't ever going to happen again. She said, how long do I have to wait to have another child? And the doctor said 6 months before you can conceive. She waited 5 and conceived me. She risked her life. And all she knew was that she wanted to be a mother. And part of that was the whole 50s thing, but part of it was that she really, really wanted to be a mother. Now, when I conceived my daughter, there were issues at the time that she was going to be born. I had had problems with the pregnancy and my blood pressure was up. But when they told me they were doing emergency surgery to protect my daughter, they took my blood pressure and they said, my gosh, your blood pressure was never this low the entire pregnancy. And I said, if I can't trust you now, when can I trust you? Because I knew that at this point all I could do was give over the care of that child and myself to the hands of the doctors. And I had always thought that I would be afraid to get pregnant. I mean, because the thought of having to go through labor at the end of 9 months was terrifying to me before I got pregnant. And once I was pregnant, it was just such a natural thing that it was all going to work out and that I was going to be a mother. Now, the other thing I learned from my mother and her sister and my grandmother was about follow-through and commitment. I don't think that I'm as good as they were. My grandmother ironed other people's clothes for a living. And that alone takes more follow-through and commitment than you'll find in my life. I don't iron my own clothes. But when she died suddenly, overnight. And the next day, the first thing my sister, my aunt, and my mother did was to finish the ironing. Now, I was appalled. I was 16 years old, and I thought, you just lost your mother. I just lost my grandmother. What the heck are you doing? Give this wrinkled, wet stuff back to these people and tell them to do their own ironing. But they knew that that job had given my grandmother the money to buy little Christmas presents for her children and her grandchildren, and the money to maintain her lifestyle. And they knew that it was nothing to be ashamed of. And I didn't understand that for a long time. But today I know that we can be proud of our work. We can be proud of our commitments. Some of those for me are Toastmasters. And it's not always easy to get here, and there are times it doesn't feel like I should even be leaving my desk. But it's a commitment that I make, and I see a lot of other people give me that example. Now, those are 2 good things that I learned from my family. And then there are the other things I learned from my family. The biggest one is about worry. In my family, you worry. And my mother has proof of that, because anytime anything really bad ever happened, she wasn't worrying about it. It was a total surprise. And anything she ever worried about didn't happen. So therefore, worrying must be the key. Just as an example, there was a day when I was coming to visit my family in Chicago. And so I was staying downtown, having a great time. And I was supposed to call them at like noon and make arrangements to meet them for dinner. Well, it's dinner I'm making arrangements for, and I'm busy downtown. So about 3, I called my mom and said, "Hi, when do you want to go to dinner?" And she said, "Oh my God, I thought you were dead." And I said, "You thought I was dead?" She said, "Yeah, you were downtown Chicago and you didn't call me. I thought you were dead." And I said, "Was anybody else worried like you?" And she said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, what was my sister doing?" And she said, "Oh, your sister took a nap." And I said, "Well, what was my father doing?" And she said, "Oh, he cut the grass." And I said, "Didn't it seem to you that it was a little silly for you to be worrying when they were cutting the grass or taking a nap?" And she said, "No, I tried to get them to worry, but they wouldn't." So, there's a Native American belief that when we heal 7 generations forward and 7 generations back. Now, my grandmother and mother and aunt taught me, and will teach 7 generations forward, about commitment and about wanting to be a mother. And what I hope I'm able to do is to teach my daughter that we don't need to worry. And in their heart of hearts, I know that wherever my ancestors are, they know now that life is on our side. There are going to be surprises, and there are going to be things we can't plan for. But worrying never, ever, ever helped any of that. And with that, I can take the lessons that I've learned and go forward, and I can take the lessons that I need to unlearn and help them go forward to the next generation. Mr. Contest Master.
That's yours.
Yes.
Please sit down for 1 minute.
I request timers to give us 2 minutes on the clock so that judges can prepare their ballots.